The Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by Mid-Carolina Service Company.
Mid-Carolina Service Company is the first name to search for your residential or commercial HVAC needs in Lexington and surrounding areas.
Just go holler at Jason and Clint. They'll hook you up on the air conditioners, on the restaurant equipment, refrigerators, refrigeration, ice machine repair. They've been doing this for years. I know them cats forever.
Family owned and operated since 2006, they pride themselves in their quality work and customer relationships. Call 803-356-4153 or visit midcarolinaserviceco.com for a no obligation quote for service today.
The Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by True Brilliance Entertainment.
True Brilliance is a production, promotions, and management company dedicated to connecting artists and producers across the Carolinas to music industry professionals.
Several of their clients have placements both domestic and internationally as a result of their services.
Are you an artist or producer looking to build meaningful relationships within the music industry? Then True Brilliance is for you. Check them out at paramilitary.com. That's spelled P-A-I-R-A military.com.
This episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by Bob's. Bob's is a Columbia-based retailer of over 100 Black-owned products from 20 Black-owned businesses. Bob's offers a wide range of items from household cleaning, cosmetics, and everything in between. With every visit to Bob's, you support Black-owned businesses, giving them the opportunity to grow and establish connections with our community. Bob's is located inside the Noma warehouse at 2222 Sumter Street in Columbia, South Carolina. Visit their website, weshopbobs.com, for in-store pickup or to find out more. Bob's can also be found via social media on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at weshopbobs. When you stop by, tell them the Hilltop Glove sent you. Bob's brings quality Black brands to the Columbia community. The Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by Red Rooster Sports Bar and Grill. Red Rooster is your neighborhood bar and grill serving the best wings, burgers, and baskets in the Met.
Like the amazing food, the bar is always on tap, and there's plenty of screens to watch the big game. Red Rooster is the Midland's premier meetup spot for local car and bike clubs, fraternities, and sororities.
Staff is dedicated to accommodating all kinds of parties and events. If you're looking to catch a game, have a bite, and a drink, look no further than the Red Rooster.
Red Rooster is located at 7500 Wilson Boulevard, Columbia, South Carolina. For more information, visit redroostersportsbar.com or visit them on Facebook, Instagram at Red Rooster Sports Bar. Go where the winners go.
Welcome to the Hilltop Glove Podcast.
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 Welcome to the Hilltop Glove Podcast, where Skip and DJ Anwa interview guests and discuss topics such as business, current events, and pop culture. The motivational podcast for the hip-hop millennial. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the third episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast, where we talk about adulting and getting into things around life, growth, and health in the business respect, as well as just in life in general. Today, we have a very, very poignant guest, especially with what's going on in time and whatnot right now, and covering current events, taking a collection and history of things through photos. We have Mr. Crush Rush with us today. We're going to be discussing some things that are going on with him in photography, how he deals with his business, what he likes about photojournalism, but also some current events and things that are going on in life. But of course, you know, it's me, DJ Amwet, and my brother Skip.
Yep.
We'll be up here handling this little podcasting this morning. But I am very excited about this because I was waiting for this interview, because this is some stuff that we like to talk about. We talk about these things often, but to have somebody who actually is in depth on these things, because they actually cover It's going to be a very good conversation for us to have. So, I mean, we're just going to jump right into it. How you doing today, Mr. Crush Rush?
Hey, man, how's it going? It's a morning, everything's been going on and, being on the left right now, trying to figure out if the world's going to be on fire or not in 4 days, Well, other than that, man, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. Got me a nice gallon of water over here, just chilling.
Dude. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So, man, I do want to get to what we came here to talk about. But, man, we got to give our audience some background into you, what you do, how you do it, why you started doing it. And your love behind it. So, like, very simply, man, how did you get into photography? Like, what was the spark? How helped you jump into this field?
Well, it's my journey into photography is a sweet and a sour story. So when I was young, I don't know if y'all remember the Nintendo 64. But back in the day, when we were kids, there was a game called Pokemon Snap, and I extensively, with quotes, rented Pokemon Snap from Blockbuster. When I say extensively, I mean that thing never went back. So I fell in love with Pokemon Snap, and then it hit me one day. I was like, wait a minute, I can take photos in real life. So I started using my allowance to get disposable cameras. And around that time, my great-grandmother was going through dementia, which is the sour side of it. So the love for photography coming from Pokemon, and then watching my great-grandmother go from being, one of the first seamstress at Lurie's, just being a really sharp woman, to not knowing who I was really, really hell-bent on photographing memories because, I was like, what if I get old one day? What if I forget? What if my, other people in the family forget? If I have these photos of the family or these photos of adventures in my life, maybe it'll help, keep my mind fresh, or something that I can look back on and say, hey, look, I did this. Even if I don't remember it, here's proof that I did it. So that's what really, really got me into photography and what made me fall in love with it. It's just a passion of capturing things and just really documenting what's going on in case something happens and I forget, or, my mom forgets or my dad forgets, just having that proof.
Man, I understand that. That is, like you said, that's a pivotal piece of your story and your history. Right. And for that to happen like that, you said you actually took some lemons and you turned them into lemonade on that one. I'll give you that. Like, Absolutely. That's a hard thing to deal with. I know Kevin and I, our grandmother, she also had to go through similar things. And I remember that time and seeing that. You're right. Being able to have something to look back into the past to show you what was going on, to give you a memory, right. is phenomenal. Like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So
Absolutely.
I feel you on that. How old were you when you got that camera, when you first started getting, when you got your first, not your disposable camera, but when you got your first real live shooting camera?
Yeah. So actually, believe it or not, I have my two first original digital cameras right next to me.
Dang. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. You got to keep it. You got to know where you started. Man, these things ain't even bigger than my hand.
Wow.
I had a PowerShot S10, 2.1 megapixel camera. I think I got that probably around 2001 was when I got my first digital camera. And then I have the upgraded version, which I would have probably got 2.5 years later, which is a 4 megapixel camera. I don't know if you remember back in the day, but if you had a 2.1 megapixel camera,
that was bad.
the Razor phone with the 2.1 megapixel camera. Look, you go back and look at the photos, they look like Minecraft photos now. I remember showing my homeboy like, yo, look at Shorty right here. I took a picture of her. He's like, now I'm like, I don't even know who that is. I can't even see her face. Yeah,
no,
but
you ain't lying. You're not telling lies.
Yeah, technology has changed, and I have
yes, it has.
all my, I have my digital cameras, and up until recently, I started selling my old, the cameras that I no longer use, because at this stage, the gear that I get is expensive. So to replace the gear, I usually sell the old gear. So, but I still got all my old classics, my old digital cameras that I know nobody would ever want to buy for any reason whatsoever.
Man, that's cool as heck. That's really interesting. I'm happy that you did keep those pieces because, like you said, again, with you being a photojournalist, man, you're holding on to that history. You have that stuff, your first things that you work with, those first tools, and you can always tell and share those stories with other people. That makes it interesting, man. That is cool as heck, man.
Well, I look at it this way, cameras and photography, when you take a photo, you're capturing microseconds of light. that will never be redispersed and redistributed ever in that fashion. So all of those original cameras that I have, man, they have captured moments, pivotal moments and movements of light that will never, ever repeat themselves. And, these are photos of my great grandmother who's passed, photos, just all types of photos that have been made on those cameras. That energy, that sensor has captured that energy. And I feel like I have a genie in the cameras, even though I can never pull that genie out. I know that those genies are still in those cameras because it's energy that and light that will never be able to, it will never be able to
be reduplicated
So I have to keep those cameras.
Exactly.
I have to keep those cameras.
Man, I like how you talk about photography, and man, I could tell you're very passionate about it. Like you're talking about almost on an esoteric level, like you're breaking down exactly what's going on with it. And you're right about that. That's one reason why, a lot of Native American groups and stuff considered photography. They would see you taking pictures and say, you're taking my soul. Like
that's right.
You're actually holding it and capturing it in a box. And there's some truth behind that too. So man, yeah, I love hearing how you're talking about this because a lot of people, when they're in certain careers, especially careers where they're artistic, to hear the passion behind it lets you know why there is value to it. And speaking of that value, when did you first realize you can make a career out of, taking pictures, being a photographer, and actually working in the real world with photography?
So my story about photography, it's full of heartaches. It really is. Starting off, with the situation with my great grandmother, and photography was never something that honestly I felt I ever thought that I would be doing as a career. I actually got really, really lucky. In 2008, the economy crashed. I'm pretty sure you all remember that. Yep. I was working at Verizon Wireless. I was a technician. I was doing really, really good for myself. Around that time, Verizon Wireless had acquired Alltel. So they had just acquired Alltel. They had all these stores. They had all this overhead. They had all these bodies that they had to figure out something to do with. And then the economy crashed and then money got tied up. I was the youngest person in the store. They let me go. They were basically saying, hey, Crush, look, you're the youngest. You've got a lot of energy. You got a lot of life. You got, you've already worked these IT jobs. You got a great resume. Somebody will hire you, and we're going to let you go instead of letting go somebody that's been here 10, 11, 12 years.
They can't reset. Yeah, they can't reset.
Right. It made sense. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, because I was so young and I was making the amount of money that I was, and I had the skill set that I had, nobody would hire me. Literally, nobody hired me because of my resume. It was seen that it was kind of like a threat, why would I want to bring in a young, wild energy that can change everything? Mm-hmm. And so I struggled. I was on unemployment. I was getting like $130 a week, man, which wasn't even a fraction. I wasn't getting not even a fraction of what I was. And so a buddy of mine, he was like, hey, Crush, you still messing around with them cameras? You still, taking pictures in free time, and I'm like, yeah, man. He's like, well, how about you come out to the nightclub and take photos every weekend? This nightclub was Taboo Nightlife. Hey. Right. And so I went out there and I started taking photos of all the patrons of Taboo Nightlife. And then one thing led to another and everybody was really feeling it. And then I started realizing that hey, look, everybody's got my pictures as their profile pictures on MySpace and Facebook. Back in the day, MySpace was still popping. That was when MySpace was taking this exit, But, seeing people have that and getting paid for it, I started making connections inside the club. And then I started doing events for people. And then I started really taking it seriously. And I found myself one day, I was downtown, just out taking photos, and there was a protest. Nikki Haley was sitting outside at the State House, and the people were from the union, and they were protesting something that Nikki Haley did. And she was just straight up not even giving them no play. She was her sandwich, and they was yelling, and she was like, nah, I'm good. I ain't talking to y'all. And I can just remember all of the emotion and everything, and I was taking pictures. And then some of the people was like, hey, look, these are really great pictures. And there was no news and media out here. Can we use these photos for so-and-so? And I was like, yeah. Wow. And then I thought about it. I was like, wait a minute.
Right place, right time.
Right place, right time. And I was like, wait a minute. There was no news people out here, but I was out here. And I remember at that time just like looking at different news networks, trying to figure out what news network I was like, wait a minute. I don't have to look at nobody else's news in Colombia. I can be the news. I can do this. And I started studying up on photojournalism, and one thing led to another. Here I am, man. Just a constant journey of putting one foot in front of the other and reaching a destination.
Man, that's an interesting story of coming from what you were doing in Verizon to going to the nightclub, and it ended up actually being the newsman.
Right.
Well, I have to ask you this because you were just breaking it down for us. So what's the difference with photojournalism? How would you explain what photojournalism is in comparison to quote unquote normal cameras showing up, shooting a 5 to 10 minute clip to putting it into the news for quote unquote news purposes?
Yeah. So you have photojournalists. The video side of it is still photojournalism. However, stills are a more, I feel, powerful way of photojournalism. So basically what photojournalism is using photos to tell a story with the addition of words. And regular journalism is using words to tell a story with an addition of photos. So, one gives emphasis on words, one gives emphasis on photos. Now, I can say this as a professional and as someone who appreciates quality photojournalism, there is a difference between telling a story and taking snapshots. In this day and age with gotta have it fast, gotta see the news fast, a lot of people who are covering things take snapshots. And snapshot is like, oh, here's a wreck. Let me go up. Let me take a picture of the car. Let me take the picture of who the car belongs to. And that's it. Photojournalism is let me take a picture of the wreck. That means all of the emotions involved. That means the first responders. That means the car. That means if I see a small crack in the mirror that looks like it could have a blood spot. That's what photojournalism is, to really connect with the viewer, to make them feel as if they were there in that moment of time, so that they can understand that this is a reality and this is something that happened to someone. So once you put them in,
you're putting them in the
exactly.
All right.
People have to feel. People have to feel for them to really be empathetic.
Got it. That makes so much sense, because I was looking through your photos on your different sites, and that's one of the things. I know we were pointing this out when we were having our pre-production talks. We were like, wow, man, one of my favorite photos is the photo at the rodeo with the gentleman holding on to the horse, trying to stay on to it. How the emotion, like you said, the emotion in his face and looking at him and the animal and the actual chaos going on. Yeah, man, that was so amazing how you took that photo. And like you said, it tells that story. You don't even have to have words with it. It was just the way in which you took the photo. It mattered. Yes, sir. Yes. Much kudos, man. And with that being said, what do you see right now as the current state of journalism in this age? Because I like how you talked about the fact that everything is quick. People take snapshots and run with things. Where do you feel this stuff is going? How do you feel that's actually moving journalism, this quick move?
Well, I feel like the tried and true photojournalists, we are really we're in a bind, because with all the presses, with all the attacks on press, and it started off as a disease coming from the right spectrum. The bringing in of Donald Trump and the way that he really started to attack the press. But
fake news.
What we're starting to see is that disease has now made its way to left-leaning politics as well. And what it breaks down to is people are afraid of accountability. If you're doing what you're supposed to do, why would a photo capturing your moments in time be problematic?
Get them. You're right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So what happens is it's the attrition between good and evil, or good and bad, or what is perceived as good and bad in societal norms. So if somebody's doing what they're supposed to do, oh, hey, look, here's a camera. I want to be in the camera. Hey, Crush Rush, hey, come to this thing because this is good. But if you out tearing up something or doing something you're not doing, or, if you out passing bad laws and, now recovering that, hey, we don't want the media here. We don't want this. So it's like everybody wants us when they want to highlight something good they're doing. But when they're doing something that's controversial, we become the enemies. We become just the people who are trying to tell the bad side of things without the good. But it's like, Nah. If you got a problem with what we're doing, there's a good chance that you should have a problem with what you're doing.
Very true. You can't have one without the other.
You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
It is the balance of life and the balance of nature. And that's just the reality of it. People are afraid of accountability. And one thing that photos and videos do, which we have seen with all the different Black Lives Matters issues, with cops being aggressive, cops, firing on unarmed people, show of force, is that video and photos have really told a different narrative. Because it's like, hey, look, a man can say, look, so-and-so did this. I feared for my life. I had to shoot him. But if you see a video that's like, look, bro, homie was 30 yards down the street with his back facing you. You didn't have to shoot him. Then that completely changes the narrative. And so now we see what's really has been going on, and what Black and brown people have been saying for the longest is like, hey, look, I didn't deserve what happened to me. But it's my word against a whole coalition of people who have been trained to really push the narrative to protect themselves.
Exactly.
So the power of photos and videos and accountability.
I mean, with what you're saying, you can go as far back as the early civil rights movement. The one thing that broke it literally for everybody, and this is like a foundational thing, are the fire hoses and dogs being sicked on people in Alabama. Right. Stuff, that news made it to places like France and England. And that's when they said, yo, there's something wrong with those people over there. And that's when change really started. You said that photojournalism and that videography, that changed everything. And that's what you're saying, like shining a spotlight on injustice and bad policy and bad actors. It always is a positive. But like you said, there's a machine that works against it. Exactly. I'm happy you're talking about that, because that also brings you into a position where you have to work and connect with people on different backgrounds. Just because you take pictures, you get into places. I was looking at like, yo, what's he doing there?
Yo, hey, you and everybody else, man. My family, they be going nuts. I can't even begin to tell you how many text messages. Hey, look, you just. When I told my mom I got a bulletproof vest, she's like, what? What? I'm like, yeah, Mom. Like, I'm sorry. It's not my fault that America has turned into Iraq, but
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Like you're like almost to the sense, like you say, you're almost like a photojournalist in a war situation right now, some kind of siege. But yeah, man. So with you doing that, how do you do that? First of all, I don't know how you explain this, but how do you connect with people of different backgrounds to be able to put yourself in positions to cover things that you may not even be a proponent for? Like you can be covering them and have a totally different perspective or a political viewpoint, but you get into those places, you take those photos, and then you come out unscathed. How do you explain that?
Well, so my whole thing is I have a couple of pillars of my personality that I really hold dear. And I really, no matter what, I like to think that everybody likes the basic foundations of human living. We all want to have a good meal. We all want to have a place to stay, a safe place to stay. And we all want to be with the people that we love, no matter if they're terrible people or not. When I'm out shooting, no matter what type of chaos is going on around me, no matter what people are saying, I always remember that I can connect with them on those three basic pillars. So that allows for me, if I focus on that, it allows for me to really keep my emotions at bay. Sometimes things get a little heavy, and up until recently, I've never actually had an incident in where I let my emotions get the best of me. The good thing about photojournalism is the best photojournalism is photojournalism that is unbiased, that it just tells you the facts. Like if I let my emotions really run rampant, being an emotional person, an outspoken person, I would be in a lot of trouble as a photojournalist.
I was wondering, yeah.
And the thing about it is too, like, I had a mentor back in the day. I'm a religion minor. And when you're being a religion minor, you have to really, really just understand that people are different. People have different ideas. People have different societal norms. And once you realize that, and realize that at the end of the day, we're all spinning around on a space rock, not knowing what's going to be happening in the next 5 years, it really kind of lets you just live in that moment and do what you need to do. We overthink things as humans way too much. Even when we disagree with people, there's still a process that in our minds that make us become over defensive and sometimes over aggressive, because we have to protect what we feel like is normal. But normal for us may not look like normal for somebody else. So, and you can't change anybody's mind by attacking them point blank, period.
Speak on it. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So like, if I really want to make change, I have to meet these people. I have to show them, especially if it's a racist. I have a lot of friends that used to, be Aryan Brotherhood, just very, very ultra right racist. And now they're my friends and have changed their lives completely. But it's because I had to talk to them and be like, hey, look, like this preconceived notion that you have about minorities is just wrong. And
exactly.
If you can talk to me, I'm not the only one like me. So you maybe just realize that, hey, look, like what you thought you knew about people is wrong. And you should have started exploring because I'm not the only one. I'm not the only, like cool, calm, collective brother that has an intellect and can speak, with a vocabulary that's, I ain't the only one.
Exactly.
Push up on a heartbeat and tell you, look, I will smack you if you don't respect me.
Because like you're saying, and this is the point that you're getting to, and I like this point. Humans, especially like just people in general, we are extremely varied. We have many different facets. None of us we don't have many of us that are just monocultural. We are not. Usually we have many, especially in this day and age, you understand, especially with technology, how fast things are. You can have so much going for one person that you can't pinpoint them and put them down in one box.
Right.
And you have to be able to see those things. And I'm happy that you're able to do that, especially with the stuff that you deal with. I'm happy that you put a point, like if you allowed your emotions to run all of that, you would be very bad at what you do. And I'm happy that you're at least honest enough to say that, because a lot of people who are in your position, who write, do photos, create journalistic pieces, they love to just work on a bias. And you know what I mean? Like they have straight news networks and websites that only feed people what they want to get.
Right.
Yes. Right. And never offer people any other ideas or perspectives so that they can actually stretch their brain. They do not do that. And it leads to what we're looking at right now.
Exactly. That's what made my life dangerous, because people think they see these $1 million making, talking heads on these big news networks, and they identify that as news and what a journalist looks like. And so they take their frustration out on the people out here like, bro, I ain't making $1 million. I might eat ramen one day, or I might go get me a $20 ribeye. Like he can go but I might be eating ramen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. So when dealing with those things, coming out of that and understanding how to properly balance your perspective and your emotions in a healthy way, how has that impacted your views on life as a whole when just dealing with humanity? How has that impacted you?
Well, I'm a lot more peaceful in my thought process. I've always been a peaceful person physically, but like in my thought process, it's easier for me to let my frustrations subside. I also identify as a Zen Buddhist. So I do a lot of meditation to help balance myself, to really
power. There we go.
Right. To really find myself. It has really made me a social chameleon. I mean, I've got connections all over the place. I got connections in the streets. I got connections in the government. It's just meeting people and having the ability to communicate with people and connect with people has been my greatest asset to really make my life and shape my life the way that I want it.
That's your superpower, man.
It is. And I just really think, because I always light up because people like, dang, Crush, everybody. Everybody knows you. And I'm like, yeah, man, that was a journey. Like that.
It didn't just happen.
It didn't just happen. Like I had to manifest and work to get to that point. And like, I just had to realize that, like, man, you just gotta meet people where they stand. You gotta talk to people. You gotta, no matter what it is, how it is, just have some level of respect for them, at least initially, until they, if they step on your toes,
they prove themselves wrong. Yeah, exactly.
Right, protect your neck. But like at the same time, like, there's still a level of civility that has to be had, especially as a working professional. And, being a black man, there are politics of respectability at play. There are some different things that I have to act differently or speak differently in regards to ills that may be done against me to save face. Because, if I get pissed off from holding in something, then I become the angry black man.
Yep.
So I have to really let that go, in real time. I can't let things fester, because then I don't want to snap on somebody that, might have slightly pissed me off.
Yeah, that's not deserving.
Everybody else who's pissed me off. So you got to balance yourself. You got to let that stuff go. You got to meditate. You got to really just find balance and get a hobby. I can't stress that enough. I love photography, but photography is my job, and I have other hobbies to offset that.
My God, that's what I'm talking about. Like you said, I could tell that you've understood what you're doing, and you do not let it run you. You run it. Right. That's what you want to do, man. That's man. I'm telling you, for any professional, like I said, what this podcast is about, learning how to adult properly and whatnot. That is one of the hardest things to learn, how to run it and not let it run you. Come on. And with that being said, talking about your experiences with folks and relationships, man, 2020 was one heck of a year. And with all the things that had gone on in 2020, have you had to, based on the stuff that happened, have you had to leave some relationships behind? Have you ran into any issues with folks because of all of the stresses and whatnot behind the events of 2020?
Yeah, absolutely. 2020 has definitely it was a year that I really had to explore the depths of what happiness looked like for me. Mm-hmm. It's easy to say, hey, I'm happy. But then when you sit down and you're in the room by yourself and those thoughts are ringing out, that's when you really start to think, am I happy? What does happiness look like for me? And so 2020, like what really hit me was like all the people in my age group that was like getting sick and dying from COVID. And I'm like, man, it was doing good. Like one dude was a workout, specialist. He was like fitness guru. He was like 34 years old with 3 kids. Dude was in tip-top shape and died. And I'm just like, yo, imagine just going to the store one day, then the next day you sick, and then like a week later you dead from something that you didn't even do, and you did everything that you could to not be in that situation.
Yep.
So I'm like, man, I really have to start identifying what happiness looks like for me, because time ain't granted. And if I'm here, I need to be happy. So relationships, I had to really back off for some friends. I had a romantic relationship that wasn't serving me in the way that it should have been serving me for a very long time. But I let love and familiarity, cause me to stick it out longer than what I should have. Mm-hmm. So I had to, step away from that relationship. There were some relationships that I had, with friends that just wasn't serving me in the way that it was supposed to. It was very one-sided. I let those go. And another thing that was great, I actually, my relationship with my parents, it has grown tenfold once I stopped, spreading myself thin with all these other relationships with people that wasn't serving me. And so now it's like a whole different, like, it's almost like I got a different set of parents. Like, I can't even break that down. I'm still like, my mom calls me randomly just to like chit chat. I'm like, yo, let me get off my phone. I got stuff to do. And
exactly.
It's like, but that was unheard of, just checking in and like calling in. And like, now if I don't hear, and then in 2020, one of the great things about it, I was actually able to find my biological family. So I got a whole nother thing. You know what I'm saying? A whole nother set of relationships that I want to build on and have been building on. And like, they are so dope. You know what I'm saying? Like, and all my mannerisms that I find out that I've never understood why I had, I get them all from my biological family. I was 33 years away from them, and I still have some of the same mannerisms as my brothers, my sisters. My mom loves ginger ale and watermelon. And if you know me, I love ginger ale and watermelon. You know what I'm saying? Like, so all those different things, like I have a lot of relationships that I look forward to building. I spent 33 years away from them, but I want to spend 33 years getting to know them, from this next point. And so I have to really, be conscious about who I give my energy and what I give my energy, because I want to make sure I give it to the people that truly deserve it and the people that would truly respect it and appreciate it.
So you would say in 2020, it helped you cut a lot of fat from that relationship scene and focus on the meat and the positive aspects and the folks that you really need to be investing your spirit into.
Yeah, I cut all the fat from my relationships and like put it on my actual body. Because like that's what I did in 2020.
No, stop. Yo, I'm gonna take that right there, Kevin. Cut that one. We're gonna use that little stuff. I took all the fat and put it on my body. Yeah, 2020 really did do that to us all. It did do that to us all.
But look, my photo belt still ain't fitting right. I said I wasn't gonna buy no new pants, man. I said I wasn't gonna do it, and I ain't did it. I'm gonna have to just
Lord, you gotta fit back into
my own pants, man.
Man, all right, man. All right, that's beautiful, man. I love hearing people explain and express themselves like that, especially in an honest, forthright way, because especially with folk in our age range, we have to understand how to do that, and how to deal with those things, especially when getting into this age. I like how you explain finding your biological family members and et cetera. You're at the age where you could do that. You can do that. There's nobody that's going to stand in the way. It's just, is it something that you need for yourself? Is it something that you think will be of positive, will create positive growth in yourself? So, man, it's good to hear. And I know a lot of people who are listening to the podcast, they will enjoy hearing that, because you do have people with similar stories that just do not know how to, or ever heard of anybody doing it. Yeah, you have to be able to navigate it.
Yeah.
Moving on, this is my fun stuff, because this is why I wanted to come to talk to you. I know I wanted the other stuff because I love to get to talk and bother and know people. Kevin, tell you, we're a very talkative family. We talk all the time. We'll talk you to death. We'll sit and talk with you for 3 hours if necessary, even if we do not know you. But you know what's going on right now.
I'm basically part of the family, so
this is what I was
right there with you. I'll talk to you.
So happy about this because like, man, Crush is fine. Crush, he'll talk. It's no problem. He'll talk. With your ability to connect with such diverse backgrounds, as we talked about earlier, in a myriad of situations, I know you have some interesting tales from your work and travels. Would you care to share some of these stories with us? It doesn't even matter if they relate to your work or not.
Look, I'll actually tell you the most recent one, which is interesting. So I was earlier, I touched on the fact that like until recently, I've kept my cool. So, for the people that do know me, I'm a very loyal person to my friends. I have to be 5'5.5". Ladies, I'm 5'6". Don't ignore what I said about the 5'5". I have a very protective, lionistic, like tribe mentality about me. And I've never really understood it until I met my biological family, because apparently that's how my grandfather was, and it's passed down to all the men. So I'm very protective over people I feel that are my family, my friends. And at a recent protest, we had the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys came into town. If you don't know the Proud Boys, they're a very ultra-right leaning organization that has been identified as a terrorist network by the Poverty Law Center. They were here in Columbia, South Carolina at a protest. At first, they approached me, and one of the guys, he grabbed my badge. He was looking at my badge. He was like, "Are you Antifa?" And I was like, "Excuse me, what?" And he was like, "Oh, you a journalist, but you don't know who Antifa is?" I was like, first of all, hold up, calm down. Second of all, like, the reason I said what is because I can't believe you asked me such a dumb question. Mm-hmm. So I think they realized that, like, I wasn't with their shenanigans at all. So then they started having a conversation with me. But then they started really trying to intimidate and harass my colleague and good friend and neighbor, Sean Rayford, who was also a photojournalist here in the city. And, they were intimidating him and trying to say that they was going to smash his camera and all that stuff. So when Sean came over to me and he was like visibly shooken up, I was like, yo, hold up. And so I literally power walked all the way over to the group of them, called one of them, was like, "Hey, look, man, I need to talk to you." And so I'm like going off. I'm like, wait a minute, like 10 minutes ago, you was over there trying to tell me that you had to be cautious because the media is making you out to be a bunch of bad guys. But here you are, 10 minutes later over here attacking one of our city's decorated journalists. I was like, bro, what in the hell is wrong with you, cuz? And so one of the other guys who wasn't a part of the conversation started coming over, and I was literally like, I'm not talking to you. And then he started talking about it. He's like, Sean Rayford is Antifa. And I was like, bro, what are you even talking about?
Oh, my Lord.
I'm like, so if he's Antifa, we've been out here 3 hours. Where is this supposed boogeyman Antifa? And he wouldn't stop. And it pissed me off. So the two officers, from working at the State House so much, they already knew who I was.
Exactly.
They probably like, whoa, wait a minute, Crush is blowing up. I've never seen this version.
This ain't normal.
Right. This is. So they came over to me, and the guys just nonstop. Sean Rafferty's Antifa, and we're gonna find this information out. And I legitimate over the officers, they're pulling me away, and I like, you know how it goes that. The black finger, it's like when the arm goes in the air and you're pointing down and
Yes.
And I'm like, well, if Sean Rayford is Antifa, then you all a bunch of effing racists. And they all kind of looked at me, and the officers were like, okay, Crush, come on.
All right, Crush, come on. Let's get out of here.
And so I lost my cool, but like, and then, so what happened was the guy that I had originally talked to, he ended up like breaking away from the group because I think he realized that like, these dudes are insane and maybe I don't know as them. But as he walked past me, I literally was like, yo, man, what's up with that? And he was like, man, I actually know Sean Rayford. He used to serve me a bunch of Jaeger bombs down in New Brooklyn. I'm like,
come on, see?
Where's your backbone? Where's your fortification?
See?
Like, so all these other little yahoos that don't know him, you know him, but you didn't even stick up and say nothing. But now you want to walk away. So I'm just like, man, where's your backbone? Stuff like that bothers me. And the thing about it is, all I was thinking, like, if they mess with Sean Rayford, they'll mess with me. And Sean Rayford don't even live a quarter of a mile from me. So I'm just like, if he got problems down the street, I'm going to have problems because I'm going to show up.
Come on, show out. And that goes back to what you were saying earlier, man. It goes back to what you were saying earlier with allowing certain things to run you and you not run it. That gentleman was being ran by the Proud Boys. He wasn't running it.
Exactly. And like him and the guy, because I had talked to him, and he was, basically saying that, look, we had to check with you because people are trying to dox us and share our information. I was like, bro, I'm a journalist in 2021. Not only am I a journalist I'm a black journalist in 2021, and I've covered some ultra-right stuff that people just don't agree with. And I was like, if I need to show you my other inbox on Facebook, you will understand exactly what fresh hell my life is. Because my other inbox is like full of racism, attacks, people saying that I'm fake news. This is like, it's crazy.
Man, so you really get those type of attack emails and stuff
absolutely. Like that. People have tried to dox me. People are like saying they gonna like send me pictures of my old car, and I'm just like, good luck with that. Like that thing got wrecked. It's crazy, and so every time something goes viral, I've had, my photojournalistic work go viral, a couple of times over the last couple of years. But on May 31st, when I covered by the police headquarters with the young girl that had the less lethal shotgun almost, to her chest.
Yeah.
Like, people thought that was fake. And then like some of the news networks from overseas was taking that photo and saying that it was from Portland and all that stuff. And so there were so many problems. People saying that didn't happen. This is a fake photo. And then people in South Carolina who just couldn't believe that something happened was like, what agency is this? You manipulated this photo. That never happened. The gun isn't facing the girl. You're this and this and that. You're this and this and that.
And you were there.
Yeah. And there's some people out there that think that they can use tactics of intimidation to make me remove a photo that it's crazy. So yeah, my other inbox is a mess. Whenever I need to laugh, sometimes I just go there and see how bad people because the people that attack me, first of all, they don't make sense half the time. Second of all, they can't spell for nothing.
That's what I was about to say. You're dealing with ignorance. It's ignorance.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Man. Like sometimes I get people talking, I'll make a status message that's talking about some of the ills in America. And they'll be like, if you don't love America, then leave. And I'm like, bro, if you love America so much, why is your profile picture a Confederate flag?
That's my... Y'all lost the war. The
Confederate flag is probably the most un-American. Like, the Confederacy literally waged a war against America, and you telling me if I don't like America to leave, like, bro, your Confederacy left America. Wait, I don't understand it.
That's what I'm saying. They can't justify themselves at all. So all they can do is attack you.
That's it.
That's one of those weird situations, man. And speaking of, man, you know what is coming up this Wednesday? It's going to be January 20th. It's Inauguration Day. This episode will actually be airing on that day, mind you. And of course, it's being played up as a political powder keg due to the actions of those on the Capitol on the 6th of January. Man, where will you be at that day? What are you planning to do? And what is your week going to look like leading up to it?
I will be at the State House come hell or high water. You know, I am fully protected. I've got gas mask, helmets, bulletproof vests.
My God. Okay.
I've got mace. You know, I've got a couple things of self-protection. And I have my mental fortification, which is my strongest weapon when dealing with something like that.
Yep.
You know, America is in a very critical state, in a very fickle state right now. What is going on? You know, do I worry? A little bit, whatever, you know, but I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that the end, good will prevail. And also knowing, you know, the officers in charge, you know, knowing Mayor Ron Kelly, knowing Skip Holbrook, knowing Crosby, which is one of the heads down at the State House, like they're really, really serious about this thing. Like I know for a fact that Crosby, he ain't gonna let nothing happen at his State House. Like that's
what I was wondering. You know that they're ready.
Crosby ain't for the shenanigans. He's probably one of the coolest, stern guys I know. He's not down for the shenanigans. It ain't gonna go by. And if it does happen, there will be swift repercussions for any bad actor.
I hope they hear that out here.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the only people who wouldn't notice it would be people from out of town, because anybody who has protested or rallied at the State House, whether it's right leaning or left leaning, will know Crosby, because you have to go. He's out there. He's
that's what I was wondering. That's what I'm wondering. Like, have you seen a lot of just folk from out of town?
Well, the Proud Boys that came into town that was starting the issue, some of them were from Charleston. And previously, some of the people who were kind of rowdy have been from out of town. But like I said, they're ready. You know, they're actually having a show of force right now. Columbia Police Department is having a show of force down at Bull Street to show, like, hey, look, if you want it, we got it. So if you want it, we got it. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people don't realize, but every capital, because of the military surplus that we have, there's a program that they have basically infused every capital before any of this went down with access to military grade weapons. Now, wow. I hate that, because we talk about the militarization of the police department, but like in senses like this, when people are talking about overthrowing the whole government, I'm like, okay, if they want to make them clap, baby. You know,
come on, exactly.
You know, we got a mind tank. If we need to bring out the mind tank because the white supremacists are trying to overthrow the government, then I mean, let it roll.
Do what you got to do, exactly.
Do what you got to do, you know. And so we have the power. I saw a glimpse of it. I mean, you can actually look up on the internet. There's a whole thing to show you what cities got what. I mean, we got tanks, we got helicopters, we've got all different types of rifles and optics and all types of everything here in Columbia. You know, so I hope that these people come in with some sense, because they can't win the firefight. It ain't going to happen. They don't have the numbers. They don't have the weaponry. And I don't think that anybody in Columbia will be stupid. But if they do get stupid, you know, being someone who respects law enforcement but still has my issues with them, if they want a problem, they're going to give them a problem. So that's just, you know, I hope that people come in, out of towners come in with some sense, not thinking that, you know, oh, Columbia's small, so they ain't going to catch the smoke, because they're going to catch the smoke.
Come on, it's a warning shot for everybody right there who's looking in to come in and cause some problems.
Right. I mean, when Columbia Police Department say, look, we're going to have a show of force, bro, you
should have known. Exactly. They should know.
Let it go, dog. Let it go.
So what's the show of force today? Where so it's on Bull Street from what time to what time?
So it started at 11:30. You know, I got my colleagues out there, so if push come to shove, I'll just ask them, you know, to use their photos on my platforms if need to. But yeah, it's a show of force, and I imagine that they probably got the APV out. I imagine that they probably got the mine tank out. We got some small artillery ballistic type vehicles in the city. We kind of, like I said, we kind of saw a glimpse on May 30th when the riot happened. If you go through some of my photos, you'll see some of those vehicles and see some of the and weapons that they had, just to kind of glimpse of what Columbia Police Department of Richland County has to offer. It's crazy how you have to cape for them. Like I got my issues with the colonels, and all that stuff in law enforcement, which can be re-imaged even here in Columbia. A lot of respect for those individuals and, my friends in law enforcement. But just like everywhere else, there's some work that can be done. There's some things that can be improved. There's community outreach that can be done and community connectivity to really kind of facilitate a healthier relationship between law enforcement and the civilians. So, but like I said, if they want the problems, Richland County, Columbia, they got an answer to it.
They got something for it. And I think after we get through this period, and once we get through Inauguration Day and we can move on with governing as normal, quote unquote, as normal, I think they'll be able to work on those things, because I think the law enforcement, especially, they're going to start realizing that the people that they were fighting against on certain issues, especially certain social issues, are nothing when it comes to people who are looking to try to overthrow power.
Exactly.
They're going to be more willing to sit down and talk with people that have issues with police brutality or the way in which force is used on the citizenry and et cetera. Because they're going to be like, yo, we got people who got militia groups who are just trying to come in and just shoot us straight up. They don't even want to sit down and talk.
Right. Well, here's the thing. This is like the Capitol happening. I've got mixed emotions because it's a bad thing, but with all bad things, there's something good.
Something good, right?
Right. And so now, actually hearing prominent lawmakers and now the next president of the United States coming out and saying, hold up. Now, if that was a bunch of black people, it would have been a lot of blood on them stairs, man.
Come on.
As minorities, we always thinking that, like, how in the world was there only one person to get capped in that whole thing?
Come on, how do you get in with no arms and no legs?
Right. And an officer got like these officers, dog.
Yes.
Could you imagine us with all our homies, couple thousand of our homies going down there trying to cause a ruckus?
Man, they would have cleared them out, man. They would have dropped bombs on them, man.
Bro, they would have rolled the tanks over us, dog. They wouldn't even shot the tanks.
Just rolled them over. They wouldn't even use any artillery.
Right, heavy artillery, man. And so that's the reality. And so hearing prominent politicians and prominent community leaders, on the right and the left saying, hey, look, man, like, how did that happen? Something ain't right here. That, to me, that brings me hope that the conversation about policing minorities is really, really about to come into a real fruition. And we're about to really start talking about what police imaging is going to look like and what policing is going to look like in these minority communities. Because if a Confederate flag can get in our nation's capital and parade around and not catch a hot one to the chest, we got a problem.
Yeah.
Because ain't no Black Lives Matter flag was going to be up in that building.
No, not at all.
And not catch a hot one.
Not at all. Man, I'm trying to tell you, man, I appreciate you sitting down with us and having a conversation with us today, especially on these topics and your career in photojournalism, because I know you could be out there shooting right now. And man, I'm trying to tell you, but I'm just happy we got to talk to you about these things, because these are things that are on our minds. We know these are current events. And these are some topics that a lot of people have questions about, especially just understanding how these things are covered and how the information gets to them from the actual source. Because most people aren't going to be out at the protests. Most people are not going to be in these places to see these things live action. And we need some reputable sources and people that we can trust to bring us proper information and things that have been screened before we get them, so that we aren't out here getting messed. Because we don't want to be running around here looking like the Proud Boys or having misinformation that drives our energies into negative spots. And so, man, I commend you on your work, on what you do out here, putting your life on the line, actually putting yourself into dangerous situations so that we don't have to. It's almost like Jay-Z said, I sold drugs so you don't have to. Like, literally,
right.
Bro, don't go out there.
So you don't have to.
Exactly. Man, serious.
One thing I like to, to all the people listening, I want you to, this is what my task is for you. I want you to find more news sources. I want you to start really digging in and fact checking and really trying to explore what the type of news is that you're getting and making sure that it doesn't have a bias and it doesn't change the way that you process things in reality. A lot of us, especially with the pandemic, have been spending a lot of time in our own bubbles. You know, we're not outside meeting people like we normally would. I would like to really challenge you all to find local photojournalists, no matter where you're at. Every city has them. The people that are working the hardest are the people that are not making the big bucks. I can tell you that 100% because I'm one of them. The people who are out here busting our tails to really give you the story as it is are the ones that are, we are catching the flack. We are the ones under fire. We're the ones that are stressed out. We're the ones that have to protect ourselves and organize amongst ourselves because we don't have a film crew and a safety crew out watching our back. We have to watch our backs and put it in and really, like, I don't know. We are struggling.
You're solo out there. Solo, yeah.
Like, me and my colleagues had a meeting yesterday about safety protocols. I mean, we got, all types of tourniquets, bandages. Because we are our own first aid. We're our own bodyguards. We're our own cameras. We're our own eyes. We have to be hyper vigilant. So find you some local photojournalists who are out there busting their tails to give you news in the accurate way. We don't have any advertisers that we have to appease to. We don't have any overhead people that we have to appease to. We don't have any lobbyists that we have to bend things this way to appease to. Find you quality journalists. Find you quality photojournalists. If you have a local paper, start supporting your local paper because that's where reality is, and that's where a lot of the non-biased news comes from.
Man, you summed that up perfectly. And speaking of which, could you give our audience some of your information, some ways in which they could support you, find your works, and et cetera? And I know we will post that stuff up on our Instagram and our page.
So for current events, a lot of times, since Instagram is an easy way to disseminate news, I post a lot of my stuff on Instagram first. Which is Instagram.com/CrushRushSC, CrushRushSC, and that is me. My website is shuttercrush.com. I also have a photo blog that I'm going to be using more in 2021, and that's Crush in the City. So that's CrushInthecity, Crush in the City. So those are ways that you can find me. Of course, I'm always on social media. I have a name that's easy to find. If you Google Crush Rush, you can find me. If you see anybody else that's got the name, they're fraud. So it ain't no other one. So yeah, that's an easy way to find me. Like I said, just look for quality news sources. If you see my name attached to it, it ain't gonna be no BS unless I'm crap posting on Facebook just to be funny. So. I will cut up on social media every once in a while.
Ain't no problem with that, man. But again, like I said, man, we appreciate you. We appreciate your time, your energy, your work. We want you to be safe out there this week, man. But go get that work in, man. Because like you said, we'll be sitting back ready to read on it, get those images in so we can know what's going on here, especially locally, but around the world, man. Again, much appreciated.
I got your back. Call me the chiropractor.
Hey. That's it for today's episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other platforms. Also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Hilltop Glove.
That's it for today's episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other platforms. Also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Hilltop Glove.